Hello and welcome to Football Heritage TV. It's never dull in the land of Tottenham with Daniel Levy in charge and Ange Postecoglou driving, steering the ship, whichever analogy you want to use. I'm joined by Barrison Royale, the financial guru, who's going to talk us through everything financial. How are you, mate? You good?
Well, I'm all right. I know I can see Philly's in the chat. Philly 2109's in the chat, and to all the haters, I thought I'd get this in early. Since Emerson Royale left Spurs, they've done worse. Since Emerson Royale is injured at Milan, no.
I'm not starting the show with Emerson Royale for once. No, when that man left, I thought we'd stop having to talk about that crap footballer, and we're still here talking about Emerson bloody Royale.
We are.
Who was dropped by AC Milan? Like, do you know what I mean? Let's not do this.
Anyway, I'm okay. I'm just obviously I'm not a. I'd like to caveat Savva's statement there. I'm not a financial guru, but I think there is some glaringly obvious things. Like if you don't go, if you're not in Europe, then you're not going to earn as much money from not being in Europe. So and if there's less games, the match day revenue is going to be less. I'm sure that is just normal, right? But you know. I wonder what the excuse is going to be this year, because obviously we've got further in the FA Cup, we've got further in the Carabao Cup than we did 2 seasons ago. Look at Stanley.
Sorry,
we've also played more games in the group stage, because obviously there was 8 games compared to 6. So and there's been probably 114,000 more events this year than previous years. So,
look, I think this is the interesting thing. Look, we'll go through it, and Lubo's going to be joining us in the next 5 minutes. He's just scratched my nose, by the way. It really hurts. Lubo's going to be joining us in the next 5 minutes as well. And look, just an hour and a half show tonight. Just very, very interested in terms of the financials coming out. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a financial guru in any way, shape, or form. But like you said, Nick, there are some obvious things here. There are some obvious things like not getting European football next year. So Lubo and I were looking at this earlier, that to get to the quarterfinals of the Europa League, so far we're roughly in and around the £10 million prize money. Roughly, just somewhere in and around there. As opposed to Aston Villa, who will be in the Champions League, who in the quarterfinals, they will roughly be at the £60-65 million mark. So the difference between the two tournaments is absolutely huge. But what's even worse than that is having no Europe. Having no Europe will leave a massive issue at this football club. We're going to go through it because, and good evening to all of you lot, by the way. Smash the like button on your way in. Let's not play this game. There's 36 likes. Let's get that to 100 immediately. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, because I tell you what, this has been the longest 1,000 of my life. I kid you not. I am still not on 17K, and it's been 7 weeks. It's like pulling teeth, and we're 80 away. So if anyone hasn't subscribed, please do. But as I was saying, there's a number of factors that we need to look at, not just the finances, Nick, but what happens if you don't get Europe to the better players? What happens to this big squad and all of these youngsters that we want to give game time to? Now, all of a sudden, you are playing once a week, if that, because there will be times where you're not playing for 10 to 14 days. You've got a squad of 25 people, all of these kids that everyone's saying he's generational and he's generational and he's... Where do you play them? You've then got the likes of Kulusevski, Romero. Like, do they want to stay and be part of a team that isn't even in the Europa League, let alone the Champions League? So there's a lot that goes into this that I think people need to think about. And it's not just, oh, well, don't worry if we don't win the Europa League. Nick, quite simply, forget Ange's job. We've got to get in the Champions League, because otherwise I can see this club being set back for another decade. I don't even think I'm being dramatic. We are going to fall away massively if we don't get this champion.
I mean, look, we've seen what a season outside of Europe has meant in terms of match receipts, in terms of it's almost been held up by the off-field stuff, right? In terms of the commercial and other income, because that's increased as everything else has kind of decreased. And obviously we've had an increase in TV and media money. So look, I think if we've seen what's happened, we will see maybe a bit of a we'll see a bit of an increase this year, but then again it's just setting itself up, right? So they haven't increased season ticket prices. They've frozen them, but this is, as we come near the season ticket renewal date, it's, from what I can see, we're not talking about. I mean, last week it was a few days ago it was Paratici and then a Xavi coming in to try and get everyone excited. Then now it's setting ourselves up to kind of say, we can't spend in the summer because we're not going to have the money. We're not potentially going to be in Europe. I mean, it didn't take long in his statement to talk about winning Europa, right? I mean, that was like the second or third statement. So it was look, it's going to set us back, because who's going to come? I mean, look, Romero, for me, I think he's gone in the summer. I'm not actually that upset by it, but it means that we won't replace him, and we'll probably keep Dragusin. Whereas if we have a Champions League or what have you next year, because we win the Europa, that means that, well, in theory, that means that we should be signing better caliber players, not 18-year-olds. But as we've seen, and also the kind of conversation that was going backwards and forwards today, that's all that we've been signing. And whether that means that we continue to do that, or we don't have European football, we're playing once a week, and we do this yo-yo thing, right? Where one season we're not in Europe, the next season we are, but we're not in the Champions League. We're just in Europa or the Conference League or whatever that looks like. So it's that yo-yo effect, because this squad's probably good enough. You could argue that to play one game a week, because we saw what happened when we did have one game a week and how we performed. But you've also seen in recent times when we have been playing one game, so it's going to make life challenging. And I guess the only good thing about this coming out, which I'm surprised at, is that it's come out before the protest on Sunday, which I thought maybe they would delay it until after the protest. But, this is strange.
Yeah, I mean, look, we will go through it in a minute. I'm going to wait for Lubo to get here. Otherwise, I know that I'll just have to go through it again. But you're absolutely right. For me, I think the difficulty that we've got is we've already got a big squad, right? We have. I know that people don't seem to think we've got a big squad. We've got a lot of players. We've got a lot of players on loan. And it's a lot of players to try and get football to if you're only playing once a week. And I think what's going to be very, very clear here is, if you do end up selling Christian Romero, just using Romero, for example, Nick, if you sell Romero, let's say you get 50, 60 million from him, people are saying, well, how will we replace him? Nick, if we're playing once a week next season, he's not going to replace him. What he's going to do is he's going to use that 50, 60 million pounds that he gets from Romero. He's going to offset that against the Champions League European revenue that we're not getting. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go forward into the season with Dragusin, Danso, Van der Ven, Vuskovic, and probably Phillips, right? Maybe Dorrington, one of those two. And if you are only playing once a week, you don't need 6 centre-backs. You don't need to. So I get it. What he will do is he will do that. There will be no need to replace a Christian Romero. There'll be no need to replace a Kulusevski. And what people will have to realize is next year we will slowly become a I know we are now, but I mean a forever mid-table team. We will become one of those teams where we talk about, Thomas Frank, he's good for that level, not us. We will become that level. We will become that level where that is the ilk of manager we should be going after. And I know people don't want to believe it, but unfortunately, if you have this year, which has been absolutely dreadful, if you then don't qualify for any Europe at all, you're then selling players like Romero, Kulusevski, people are going to start looking and going, this is what Spurs are now. They are no longer a team that are teetering. We were never, Nick, Spurs are amazing, but we were there. We were always, are we going to get fourth? Are we going to get fifth? Now we're looking at 14th. So this is a huge 2 months coming up for Tottenham Hotspur, isn't it? It's massive.
Yeah, look, there's 28 players in the squad, 7 out on loan, and that doesn't include Vuskovic and the potential of Cardoso coming in, right? So with whatever deal has been agreed to link in with the World Cup in 2026. I would not be surprised, and you're right. I would not be surprised. You know, again, we're talking about if we haven't got any Europe, then we don't need to worry about whether we sell Bissouma and Bentancur. We can sell both because we've still got enough midfielders. We've got Bergvall, we've got Gray, we've got Maddison, we've got Kulu, we've got Johnson. The list is. Matassar. I mean, the list is kind of going on. That's not to mention that Højbjerg's on loan, Hill's on loan. You've got Heungmin, who I don't know, is he a midfielder? I don't know. You've got Solomon. You've got it's just crazy, right? So you're not going to need it, and what you're going to find is, and I think this is another thing that's been done, and we've seen the kind of mess that Liverpool are in with Trent, Salah, and Van Dijk. I genuinely think that Sonny was only his extension was only activated so that we don't do a similar thing to what we had with Harry Kane, and we're at risk of losing him for nothing, right?
Bang on. And he wasn't kept for footballing reasons, was he? No. First and foremost, marketing reasons, and then to coin a bit of value. Let's be honest, Son has been I've been one of Son's harshest critics this season, and you could argue rightly so or wrongly so, but he has been a good servant to this club. But I think what you're going to find is that you're going to have a Son and a Maddison, and that's really going to be it in terms of experienced players who actually probably care. Because you can sit there and say Maddison was on the bench giving, it's like this all the time, or whatever he said in that European game, it's always the same. But at least it shows that he cares. You don't see that from a lot of these players, and I think it's. I just think it's going to be really interesting, right? Because realistically, you've got question marks on that defense, question marks on left backs. Reguilon still here, Forster. I mean, we could do with having another 6 to 8 clear out, and we'd still be all right if we don't have Europe. Isn't it mad though, Nick? Welcome, Lubo. I'll come to you in a second. Isn't it mad though, Nick? Like last summer, all I heard from everyone was, all the deadwood's gone now, we're sorted. And now this window, we're already going, well, he could go. It's like the never-ending deadwood cycle. But look, Lubo, welcome to the show. What did you have for dinner? Anything nice?
I had a nice salmon with potatoes, courgettes.
You could have stopped at salmon. I wouldn't. Do you know what? The only thing I think you said that was nice there is the word potato. But listen, courgette, salmon. I don't eat fish, by the way, as you know from the other night when we were. What did I have the other night at Orient? Chicken a la creme.
You had chicken. That's right.
Oh, chicken.
All right, don't mention the other night. Yeah, still sore in my view. The other night, yeah, still
me and Lubo had a very romantic little table together, didn't we, mate? It was very nice.
We did. Nice. Right in the middle of the room.
Right in the middle of the room, and then we managed to blag our way into the gallery seats. Had a great view on the halfway line. Anyway, Lubo, the financial results are out, and encompassed within those financial results is the kind of, it's the air of, oh shit, for next season. And that's how I took it. I read that all and went, we are buggered if we don't make Champions League. When you first saw it, we'll bring it up in a minute, Lubo, but what was your immediate thoughts when you saw the financials? I'll bring it up on the screen in a second.
How dare he have a go at the fans? It was an out-and-out attack on the fans. He has served up the biggest pile of shit I've seen for 30 years, and he's attacking the fans.
So let's get to that.
Statement. Unbelievable.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about this bit of the statement here?
We must do everything we can to support the team in these final key stages.
Is that
no? The whole thing about when he was talking about spending.
Oh,
we are the ninth richest. We are the ninth. However, we are the ninth richest club. That's right. Close examination show that such spending must be sustainable in the long term. Well, he's made £282 million in operating profit in the last 2 financial years. So don't talk to me about being sustainable, for Christ's sake. What he should be doing, because he put down there about 700 million net spend since they moved into the stadium. Well, have a look at the players that they bought with that 700 million and tell me how many have been successful. If he knew what he was doing and he backed his managers and he brought in, after Conte and Mourinho, and he brought in people that knew what they were doing on the transfer front, we might have a higher success rate than I think is about 1 in 3 at the moment with all the players that have come in. It's ridiculous. You know, there's no accountability on his side, is there? Nothing.
And I think also, Lubo, you've got there that last sentence of that paragraph is almost a little dig to the people that say about, you know, the off-pitch revenues, and it's, you know, saying it significantly supplemented the lower football revenues this year. Testament to our diversified income strategy. I mean, it's so we're going to have more. We're going to have more concerts. We're going to have more NFL. We're going to have more Formula One. We're going to have something else that we're going to, you know, add into the mix. You know, because it was very interesting to mention about all of those things. You know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, these people are coming to spend. These people are investing, so that the fans also need to do this. You know,
I think it's just appalling. He is appalling as a chairman. There is no empathy. There is no love for the fans, for the football club. Nothing. Just nothing. It's just an out-and-out attack. You know, he's come out fighting before the protest. You know, this could have come out next week.
Well, this is what I just said to Savva. I just said I'm surprised it has come out just before the protest, because he would have known that there's a protest on Sunday, and he's just added fuel to the fire, which I guess we're never really surprised, right? Because, you know, we had the news of another concert from, you know, last week that wasn't widely shared by the Tottenham you know, sort of social media's accounts, which we, you know, for various, we know obviously the reasons why, but it's just, as Flying Solo just said, we're not fans, we're customers, and
that's right, we are. That's all we are, is customers.
By the way, I've just put the link in for Sean. No one else. This isn't a free for all. Just thought it'd be nice to get some. This is not a free for all. Please don't think everyone's coming in. I think the interesting thing, Lubo, is like, sorry, the puppy has his witching hour between sort of 7 and 9. It's just like a nightmare. The interesting thing for me, we talked about on the phone, Lubo, was when he talks about the money coming in from other revenue streams other than the football. It's a bloody good job it is, right? It's a bloody good job it is, because if it wasn't, we would be going so far backwards. So would it be fair to say, and again, I'm not a financial expert, so I'll ask a lot of questions on this, that the revenue from the stadium is actually offsetting how bad we're actually doing on the pitch, and the lack of revenue from player sales, from lack of Champions League? Is that fair, or am I way off mark there?
Well, you've had nine fewer less games, so you've lost about 50 million in match receipts period for the whole thing, which has been made up, and your revenue's only dropped by 20 million, but there are other drops, aren't there? I mean, UEFA prize money has dropped by 54.9. So there's 54 there, offset by TV and media. So there's 17 million up there. So that's 54. That's 37. Commercial and other income, there's your 28 million difference. So,
oh dear.
Commercial and other income. So, there he is, Mr. Finance. Good evening.
Mate, I've never heard such waffle in my life. Honestly, I feel like I'm coming in as Mr. Box Office. How you're spinning this into a Daniel Levy is an embarrassment, toxic thing, Lubo. It's just a joke. This is an incredible set of numbers from the best businessman in the Premier League. It's unbelievably steady and stable considering what's happened on the pitch, which, by the way, the chairman is only partially responsible for. Right, partially responsible for.
Really?
But as always, come of the hour, come of the man. Not just you, but anyone else coming out to find a way to twist it. What I just heard, and by the way, like I'm a little bit aggravated. Savva, this might be one of those situations where I shouldn't be on your stream. Not that I'm going to go into one because I'm in a good place.
I'm just sitting back on this one.
I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place. Like there's less stress, but I've also just been like completely disrespected by someone else who asked me to come on to their show, and then I cut my own stream short to make room for it, and then got put in the back of a queue behind someone else. And I was like, well, wait, I'm doing you a favor and I'm in the fucking queue. What are we doing here? Who do you fucking think you are? So I'm a little bit wound up, not because of any of you lot. I love you all. But so I'm a little bit feisty. I'm up for it. Listen, we can chew through it, but those numbers are not a reason to hate Daniel Levy. They're a reason to absolutely give him a pat on the back for what he's done as a businessman. And like it or loathe it, think of him, and I agree with many of your sentiments that he gets involved in the business side of football too much. In the football side of football too much. And that's fine. And I completely concur with all that sentiment. But in terms of what is a chairman's role, primary responsibility of a football club, is to make sure that you recognize and articulate that you are a custodian of a football club, which in business terms mean sustainability, that you don't jeopardize the future because you are just a temporary part of the ownership, but that you, after you're long gone and 6 feet under, that this football club can live on for our generations to come. And he has done an incredible job when you compare and contrast the season before, when we had 24% more fixtures, we had Champions League revenue, we got to the last 16, and Conte, that cost £15 million a year, decided to go into a 1-0 deficit and defend it like it was like the right thing to do. In a world of hyperinflation, in a world where the cost of putting on the events is up 17%, in a world where all of those things that are outside of the control of Daniel Levy, to only lose 4% net revenue is absolutely incredible. It's incredible. And to dial in, I'm not expecting...
So he's not accountable, Sean. So he's not accountable.
Hold up, mate. Let me finish my point. I'll let you pick apart my argument in a second. But
okay.
Like to dial into your show and to hear Lubo and Barry, of all people, Barrison Royale, who I haven't seen for ages. And shout out to you, Barry. You look fantastic, by the way, mate. Your weight loss is continuing. You look brilliant, mate. It's great to see you. But to hear the two of you like jump on each other's little fucking like little wind at the tail of the wind in your back, like you think that no one's going to come on and call you out on the nonsense that I just heard. I've never heard such absolute waffle rhetoric in my life. It's
I'll tell you what, guys,
this should be celebrated, not criticised.
I'll tell you what we'll do just quickly, Lubo, before you go. Clearly, this is going to be more about, I feel, Barry, like it might be more about them than us.
I'm not going to be an option thief.
No, it's all good. Listen, I'm not an expert with finance. Listen, everyone knows my feelings. It is what it is. Where would you like me to start? Like, you know, when we look at here, where's good for you guys to start in terms of what part of this do you want to? Do you want to look at these top line figures? Do you want to look at the bullet points? Are we looking at the statements?
I can summarize it for you in a nutshell, right? 24% less games, 17% higher cost of putting on an event, not because of anything that he's responsible for, but because of inflation, because of the cost of doing business. £50 million less, no European football, the lowest amount of games in the history of Tottenham Hotspur because of how poor we were last season in the Cups, and obviously no Europe and all that stuff. It's a 41 game season.
This is for last year. This isn't for this year's figures.
I know. It's for last year's. I know.
Okay.
What was that? Was that like some sort of little stab? Like, let's just see if we can completely underrule what are you talking about?
Sean, if you want to really get Lubo, just say something bad about Archie Gray, mate, and then you will see the bad side of
What are we doing here? What are we doing here, Lubo? Did you actually think that I was referencing this year's figures that aren't even out until next time? Come on, mate. I'm better than that.
Thrown you off course. What I want you to tell us, Sean, is as a football club, how are we benefiting? Please tell me, because we're going
it all comes back to, mate. Why, Daniel? Again, mate, this is going to immediately take us away from the actual fact of the numbers. No, this is a stream about financials, right? This is a stream about financials. This is a stream about financials. You can take your, how does it translate, waffle, and you can say that anytime, any day of any week, any month of any year you want, and have that debate. And I will have that debate with you any other time. But today is about the numbers. And the numbers are incredible given the comparatives of what we were competing against in the year before. Champions League revenue to zero European revenue. In a world of hyperinflation, where the cost of doing business is 18% higher, and he only loses 4% revenue. In a world where commercial revenues are up significantly. In a world where TV and broadcasting rights are filtering through but not fully baked in yet. In a world where you also have that 46 to 42% wage to revenue ratio, where when you look into the numbers, Lubo, you will see the devil where it exists. But in this scenario, the devil doesn't suit your narrative. It actually undermines it. Okay. The wage to revenue ratio is built around a numerator and a denominator. And people overlook that.
Because as a shareholder, Sean, they're giving me fuck all, as ever. None of the shareholders get a dividend except.
So you want a dividend?
The board. That's all that gets. So the shareholders who have money in the
You're
club,
the first Tottenham fan I've ever heard that says he wants a dividend.
Really?
So you'd rather have like a Man United situation.
Sean, have you seen how we're not going to be anywhere near Man United? So don't give me that nonsense. We're the opposite end to Jim Ratcliffe telling people that they're in they were going to go bankrupt in a few months' time. So please let's not compare us to Man United.
Are you arguing that you want a Glacier style model where Daniel Levy gets to take his slice of the event and you get yours on your 1,000 shares?
Sorry, he is paying himself. He's paying himself
£3 million, right?
He's paying himself big dividends every year for failure.
No, he's not. No, he's not paying himself any dividends. Otherwise, you'd be getting yours as well. So, mate, if you're going to say things. Say the
bonus. Have you seen the figures that Kieran Maguire came out with the figures that the CEOs are getting paid?
Has he paid a dividend? Yes, I have, mate. And I challenged Kieran Maguire on that. Because Kieran, hang on a second, hold up, mate. Just because Kieran Maguire works for Manchester University, he's an academic, right? The rest of us that have worked in finance for the last 20 years have just as much fucking gravitas, just as much ability to read an accounts document. I know the guy carries a little bit of weight in the financial community, but what he said, I challenged it on Twitter. And guess who walked away from the debate when I pointed out a very real fact? The reality of the situation is that if you value Tottenham Hotspur as Tottenham Hotspur is valued, then they would appear on the FTSE 100. And as a CEO, the average CEO of a FTSE 100 is significantly higher than Daniel Levy gets in all sorts of compensation metrics, not including share dividends, not including share purchases. Okay, so I'm gonna say, whoa! You can't ask me a question and then not let me answer, mate. You can't. You have to let me get through it. I called him out on it. I said, what you're doing is disingenuous. And I said, he's getting paid 70% less or whatever it was, I forget the detail, than the average CEO of a FTSE 100 company, of which Daniel Levy would be if Tottenham Hotspur were listed on it. And he turned around and said, the average revenue of a FTSE 100 company is 4 times higher than what Tottenham generate. And I said, correct. But you know what else has happened? Tottenham Hotspur employ 300 people. The average FTSE 100 company employs 40,000. And you know what? I didn't hear back. You know why? Because he was wrong and I was right. So at the end of the day, don't bring up Kieran Maguire as a pitch to authority, Lubo. I'm happy to take him on. I'm happy to take you on.
I love listening. Sean, I love listening to you, but every time I speak to you, you forget one massive fact. This is a football club. You seem to have forgotten that.
Not when you're looking at the numbers. When you're looking at the numbers, it's just a company, mate. It's just a company. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's a company, like everything else. It's a financial analysis. It's a financial analysis.
4 million fans worldwide. You don't have
according to what? Social media fans.
No.
According to according to how many TikTok fans we have, how many Instagram fans we have. Is that the number you're actually touting out, Lubo? You're better than that, mate. You're better than that. Don't be so ridiculous.
1 million fans. Do you have 1 million fans of every company in the FTSE 100? Come on. This is football. This is not regular.
Measured by who presses the follow button. I'm not paying customers, Lubo.
Let me tell you something. I've got shares in Santander, right? I don't go and watch Santander play in the Premier League.
You cannot say the difference between a customer and a fan. If the argument of a fan is how many people push the follow button.
Do you know what? Can I just say something really quickly? I reckon Santander in my local town could put 11 employees together to beat Spurs at the moment. Just saying. As you were, gentlemen. As you were.
Yeah.
Lubo, mate, you're making a ridiculous argument. You're basing it with 32 million fans, which you're equating to customers simply because someone somewhere went and pressed, let's get a calculator out. They probably didn't actually get a calculator. They probably went, in my head, how many followers do Tottenham have on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube? That'll do. 32 million. That's the amount of fans worldwide. It's ridiculous.
Don't gaslight me. You get my drift. 34 million.
I don't get your drift. I don't get your drift if you're making the comparison that Banco Santander and Tottenham Hotspur are non-comparable because of fans that press a follow button versus accounts at the club.
Sure. You've lost it, mate, because Santander is only about making the profits for their shareholders. Tottenham Hotspur Football Club is a football club that play football on a pitch in competitions. And bearing in mind the history and the tradition of the club, that I'm sure you are 100% aware of, I'm sure you know all about, I hope you know all about the quotes from Bill Nicholson, who created this history and tradition pretty much. You had 51, you had 01 and 21, and the club's been going nearly 150 odd years next decade.
Let's not legitimise the point you're about to make by harking over history.
The point I'm making is that if you are an owner of a football club, then you have to mix, you have to find a balance between supporting the team and trying to do your best for trophies and being a businessman and making a profit. They are not interested. Instead of being down the middle for both.
Yeah. Here we go again.
Down the middle. No, it's not. Levy is
this is your subjective take. This is your subjective take
in the football side. Zero.
This is your subjective
take.
It's
not subjective. It's fact.
Of course it is. Of course it's subjective. Fact. Of course it's not a fact. It's subjective, mate. It's your opinion. It's your opinion.
Of course it's fact.
Lebo, I know you're
Nick, I'll give you one example. As a CEO, you employ a manager to run that first team football club, and you would think that Harry Redknapp knows better than Daniel Levy. So we're third in the league in 2012, and Redknapp says, do you know what? We can make a real push to win this league. I need Tevez and Cahill to give me that push. We've got 3 points to make up. What does Levy say? No, Harry, sorry, mate. I know better. Because I'm Daniel Levy. I'm a football expert.
So now your example, Lubo, now your demonstrations of fact are a bunch of anecdotes of which you weren't in the room for, of which you weren't in the room. You don't know what happened. You've heard stories. You've read books. You've got your little your WhatsApp groups, whatever. They all say the same thing. Levy out, whatever it is. All that shit. They're anecdotes and they're subjective. Do you know the difference between subjective and objective?
One of you. For 2 reasons, hang on, Lubo. For 2 reasons, I need it to be one at a time. One, because I can't understand, and 2, because if I want to clip 10 minutes of this and whack it out as a video, I need to be able to see what the debate is.
Can I say what Lubo? What I was going to say is, what I was going to say is I cannot wait to see Howard in the dugout as our new manager, and we go to Lloyd's Bank away next season based on Lubo's facts about Santander. What are we doing here? What are we doing
Exactly. Well, listen, if Sean was chairman, he'd probably have the bank as the bank guy. Manager,
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Let me bring this back to a question, because otherwise we could be debating whatever you're debating all day. When you look at that, guys, the first thing that jumped out to me was, what are we going to do without Champions League? Because obviously this whole season now, I think every Spurs fan, forget whether you're Levy in, Levy out, Ange in, Ange out, I think we're all pretty much on the same page that it literally is the Europa League or bust. It's literally going to be our most successful season on paper for 40-odd years, or one of our worst for 40-odd years, right? So I don't feel like there's any middle ground there. By looking at those numbers, my first worry was, what are we going to do if we don't get Champions League with regards to the salary that's already been dropping year on year, with regards to being able to buy players? What are we going to do? Because surely those numbers are going to continue to go down, because we won't have Europa League. We won't. That's my question to you guys. Is that not the bigger concern here, rather than Levy in, Levy out? Isn't it what happens to Tottenham? How far do we fall if we don't have Europe next season?
The most important thing to remember is, and this actually is a lovely little blend away from what we were just getting into, that Lubo doesn't know the difference between his opinion and fact. The fact is, right, that the wage to revenue turnover is based on two deciding factors: a numerator, i.e. your revenue, and the denominator, i.e. how much you spend. So when you look at the ratio between the two, then you can have a situation where your revenue can jump by 20% and your wages can stay the same, and your wage to turnover ratio can drop dramatically by 10, 20, 30%. So these people that hark on this notion of the lowest wage to revenue rate in the Premier League or Europe, that is in no small part fact, not opinion, fact. It's in no small part because our revenue is always as high as it is. And this particular set of figures, despite the fact that you're comparing it to a previous year where we had Champions League football and all of the money that came from it, that we've only reduced our revenue by 4%, despite the fact that we've lost 10% in revenues from the absence of European football, despite the fact that our operating costs have gone up 17% or whatever it is because of the cost of doing business. Again, by factors that are outside Daniel Levy's control. People like Lubo, love you to pieces, Ian. But ultimately, mate, you're a smart guy. You run your own business. You know these things. You will never bring these things up, either because you don't fully understand them or because it doesn't suit your narrative. But ultimately, the reality is that the wage to turnover ratio is built upon two things, one of which Daniel Levy is entirely responsible for, which is the revenue. And when you look at those numbers today, which is an analysis of today, and you want to take it down parts where, because it doesn't suit your narrative, you want to talk about the transference towards what it looks like on the pitch, which is an argument you can have anytime you want. Hang on, let me finish, mate, and then I'll shut up. But you can say what you want about the transference of intent, of ambition onto the pitch, and you can have that argument as much as you want, and everyone in the comments can as well, on any day of any month of any week in the year or any year. But ultimately today is about looking and analyzing those numbers, and on those numbers, on the remit and the mandate of what Daniel Levy is responsible for, which is for generating revenue to make us competitive. Given the fact that we are comparing our numbers to the previous year when we had all those things that we don't anymore, then that should be celebrated that it's only a 4% revenue drop. Compare that to Everton. Have you taken the time to look at Everton's numbers, who also brought their figures out today? Have you looked at them? If you did, you would see the difference between a good chairman and a shit one. And a terrible, terrible, terrible tale is being told at what the Friedkin Group has just inherited over at Everton. But you won't mention that, either because you're not interested in Everton or because it doesn't suit your narrative. So those of us that are objective, hang on, those of us, last 3 seconds, those of us that are objective, that can just look at the numbers, can see it for what it is, that we are in a brilliant position. And should Tottenham go on and win the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League, you will not see a club that is in a better financial position relative to our position, relative strength index against anyone else, given the circumstances in which we are affording ourselves. Now, you can make the argument about Daniel Levy being the right ambition type of guy, and I can share or disagree with your sentiments on that. But in terms of the numbers, they're incredible given the comparative circumstances in which we found ourselves. Incredible.
Well, when you look at the turnover, when you look at what Sky bring in to every club, what they pay every club, you can finish bottom of the table. You've got over £100 million. So I think that a lot of the build in Tottenham's value, any proper businessman over the last 24 years, with the way that money has exploded into the game, I think you've got to be really poor, like the Everton, like Mashiri, who thought he'd act like a fan and just spend. So what you've got, Sean, you've got Tottenham and Everton, where you've got the two different ends of the spectrum. So, and you could say that Mashiri's behaved like Ridsdale did with Leeds before the explosion of money that came in. So you could say that you've got a fan there who spends, doesn't know about football, apart from Ancelotti and Moyes, probably hasn't had the right people around him. But the recruitment also has been poor. He hasn't kept a close handle on his spending, on his overheads. And then you've got the other end, where you've got the accountant running a football club that basically is just geared up to make anemic profit.
Profit that is distributed to the owners how?
Sorry?
You're talking about profitability like it's a bad thing for a football club.
No. Sean, I want Tottenham to be the most profitable club in the country, in the world.
And you want that to be transferred onto the pitch, right?
And I want to see it being transferred onto a pitch.
And are you suggesting it hasn't been?
In a proper, sensible way.
And has it not been?
By a chairman, hear me out, who doesn't know the first thing about football and brings in an expert the way Branson does with all of his different businesses, and brings an expert in on the football side to run the football.
So who if we're having the argument around taking your hands off the reins and handing over, again, Lubo, mate, I don't disagree with you on those things. I don't disagree with people who in the comment section add yada yada, same old shit, right? People that see me rolled out on other people's channels who don't watch my own channel and don't know how often I criticize Daniel Levy, because in these circumstances I'm coming out here and always defending him. But the reality is that today is not a day to talk about the transference of value. It's to look at the numbers, right? That's what we're talking about here. And you want to move the argument into a direction where it comes back to something that you could debate with anyone else any given day, and you do, because you hang around echo chambers, and that's fine. That's not you do what you want to do. But today is about the numbers, the objective. I'm sure you do. Good for you. The objective numbers around whether or not the comparative figures versus a year when we had champions, not European football, not UEFA League, not Europa League, not Conference League, not where there was like meaningless differences in that contribution, but in terms of a world where inflation was doing this, the cost of putting on events was doing this. And by the way, those figures don't even include the additional value of what we're seeing right now, which is another doubling of the events, the non-match day events that are going to be factored into next year's figures. All of those things are wonderful things. And also is a wonderful thing, which is always overlooked by fans that just want to focus on, and I get it, the things that they care about and the things that they understand, which is football success. But at the end of the day, the only chairman in the entire Premier League who diversifies the expectation of revenue generation away from the fans of the football club is Daniel effing Levy. That should be celebrated, not chastised. And I know a lot of people, because I've had these debates with a hell of a lot of people. I've had all these debates for years. They used to be, I don't care about Beyonce. I don't care about Formula One. They're just demonstrations of Daniel Levy being a profiteering prick, right? But ultimately, that now that argument has been settled, that it's a necessary, viable, and valuable contribution to the numbers, that they don't say that anymore. Now they say, I'm more than happy for Tottenham to have anything that goes on in the stadium as long as it doesn't disrupt the football team, as long as it's transferred, right? It is transferred and it is necessary, and no other chairman does it. And Daniel Levy should be applauded for that stuff, but he isn't. You know why? Because you made up your mind. Today is a day to analyze the numbers, and those numbers should be celebrated, not argued, not chastised, not critiqued with a criticism lens, because that's how you feel about the owner overall. I get it. I get it, Lubo. But if you want to have a debate around whether it transfers, you can have that debate anytime, anywhere. Today is about objective truth.
No. As a financial person, you love Daniel Levy. You make it very, very clear.
I don't love him. I don't give a fuck about him.
You respect him. Fine, you respect him. Let's change the word. You respect him. I think, Sean, you forget you're a football fan for Tottenham Hotspur. That seems to go out of the window. The two are connected. He's not there just to make a profit for ENIC. He's there as a custodian of the club to look after the football.
You just said a minute ago that where's my dividend? The only way that you get your dividend is if he takes his, and he will take a lot more, but he doesn't. He doesn't take dividends.
Plus out the club while he's been chairman. He's taken millions and millions more than any other chairman.
As a salary and bonuses. That's how fucking life works, bro.
Bonuses?
That's compensation.
Really, one trophy in 25 years deserves the bonuses that he's had. Come on. Now you're ignoring stuff. Now you're suiting your narrative and your agenda. This is bullshit. One trophy in 25 years, Sean.
Why?
Why?
Sorry, one trophy in 25 years? Mate, hold up.
I'm talking. And before you turn around and say, which you have done, which you have said to me before in the past, before you turn around and say, be careful what you wish for, I think you would have said that to the Newcastle fans when they were trying to get rid of Ashley. And now,
I'm wondering how long it was going to be before that was mentioned.
That's what I hope you saw the final against Liverpool and the way they all turned out on Saturday for their club. It's a proper club with proper owners who employ.
When you on a channel, Ian, that was celebrating you were actually on the stream that was articulating the value of us getting out of the cup against Liverpool, and actually relegation being a better thing because your narrative, your agenda is more important.
Sean, as a football fan,
were you on that show? Bro? I'm pretty sure you were part of that conversation.
One at a time, please.
I'm pretty sure. Don't sit here, Lubo. Do not sit here, my man, and talk to me about the notion of the fans.
Guys, I can't hear both of you.
Don't do it, buddy. I'll annihilate you in that argument. I'll annihilate you, my man. Don't do it. Don't annihilate
me, Sean, because I'm a football fan and I'm a Tottenham fan. And you forget you're a Tottenham fan. You're into fight. Oh, Daniel Levy.
You were championing our relegation.
What a chairman.
You were championing our relegation.
What a chairman.
Lubo, do not question my fandom, bro. You were celebrating with all those other bozos on that channel, and I don't deny it because I saw it live. I was embarrassed. You were championing the idea of losing the cup being better for your movement.
No.
Yes, you were, as were all the others, right? And the argument came up around whether relegation was better for the movement. Don't talk to me about being a fan, bro, because it was embarrassing. It was the worst thing I've ever seen.
I didn't travel and spend a whole day and get home at 4 o'clock in the morning going to Liverpool because I wanted them to lose. Let's get that straight, and then get in my car and drive to Villa Park.
Were you not a part of that show? I
was part of that show.
Were you not a part of? Were you not agreeing, nodding in agreement? Relegation's better for the movement. Relegation's better for the movement. Short-term pain, long-term gain, all that shit. I heard you say it, buddy. Don't deny it now. Don't deny it now.
I want these owners out. Because I tell you something, while he's there, I'll never see another trophy, probably.
Let me ask you then, guys. Let me interject, right? Let me interject. I want to know, what does all this mean for Spurs if we don't get Champions League? Is there money there for us to go and have a good summer? Or are we going to see Spurs tighten their belts even more like we did last summer, where it was something like 30 odd million pounds in wages saved, lots of young players coming in. That's what I want to know. Moving forward, what does this mean for Tottenham Hotspur if we do not get Champions League football? Because it's as far as I can see, someone to tell me the difference between us getting Champions League or not is going to be somewhere, someone will tell me if I'm wrong, we're looking at somewhere in the region of 60 to 90 million pounds across the season. I think that's right, depending on how far you go. So what does this mean for us as a club, guys, moving forward if we don't get Champions League revenue? Do those numbers today show that we're in a healthy position to go into the transfer market, pay big wages, buy big players, and start competing? That's my question.
Let's hear Lubo turn this into a subjective argument. Go on, Lube.
What's wrong with you guys? Lubo, does it?
Tell me, no, hang on. I'm going to throw this back at you, Sean. Are you happy with what you've seen this season?
Am I happy with what I've seen this season? No, of course not.
You're not happy.
Am I happy with what I saw in those figures, which is what we're here to discuss? Yeah.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Figures that are wonderful.
You should be too, mate. You should be too.
You know what?
Because
we're gonna have a bus top parade all around Tottenham High Road. There's gonna be 500,000 out there singing.
You're sitting there as the guy that was championing our relegation. You were celebrating the notion of our
biggest in the Premier League. Look at us. Let's have a full bus.
Don't talk about Premier League ever again, Lubo, because you were happy to see us in the Championship. Because it meant more to your movement. It was embarrassing, buddy. It was embarrassing. Don't ever talk to me about being a Tottenham fan. Don't ever talk to me about that shit, bro. Don't ever talk to me about that shit.
Let's get rid of these people. Right. Let's get rid of them. They're killing the club anyway, Sean.
You wanted us to lose, bro. You wanted us to lose. You part of that City till July thing as well. It's weird, mate.
You are not a Spurs fan. You cannot possibly be a Spurs fan.
I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm not a Spurs fan.
You totally disregard.
You never catch me. You never catch me. Go and find the clip, bro.
You totally disregard the connection between the football.
My guy, you were championing our relegation. You championed our relegation. Lubo, you championed our relegation.
If it
don't ever talk to me about being a Spurs fan, bro. You were celebrating the idea of our relegation. It was outrageous. It was embarrassing, and it was like after that, like,
history, Sean, of running around all over the world, supporting the team through the biggest pile of shit, as well as the very few decent years that we've had in the last 25.
Why did you champion our relegation then?
Then come back and question me.
Why did you champion our relegation? Why did you champion our relegation?
How fucking dare you question me? Whoa. How dare you?
The F-bombs.
Oh my God. I'm the last person you question about being a fan.
Did you or did you not celebrate the idea on that channel?
Not celebrate. How desperate must you get when you're seeing your club, the heart and soul of your club, being ripped out by these owners to want the club to go down if it guaranteed them leaving? You think about it. Think about that comment.
I know. I have thought about it, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Anyone listen, Savva, with all due respect, mate, the comment section in your show is the comment section on your show. I'm fully aware that my style doesn't go down with I don't give a I couldn't care.
It's fine. Listen, right? I'm not bringing up
couldn't give a shit. But mate, if anybody here, if anybody in your comment section subscribes to the same thing that I heard from this man and his crew over there on that channel, celebrating the idea of us losing to Liverpool because it meant more positive momentum for a factor that is largely irrelevant.
No.
Oh my word!
No one said about losing to Liverpool. Nobody said about. Somebody said. The question came up: if the only way of getting rid of ENIC was
going to go get the clip,
would you take it? That was the question.
Shall I go get the clip?
The only way of getting rid of them, would you take it? Because you know what, Sean, they're crashing the club at the moment compared to where we were 6-7 years ago. They are crashing the club.
And why were we where we were 6-7 years ago, Lubo?
Why, in spite of Levy, because he wanted
there you go. Moving the goalpost again, right? The buck stops at the top Until it doesn't.
And guess what? The first sign of trouble with Pochettino after 5.5 really good years, the first sign of trouble, he ran for the hills, Levy. Get out of our club, Poch. He got rid of it.
I'm back. I just dropped my microphone. That's all.
Sam, you wanted a lively show, mate.
Sure, but from all of that, what does this mean for our summer transfer window if we don't get Champions League football? I mean, it's the third time I've attempted that question in half an hour. I
told you before. Listen, if people watch my channel, I've got basically a 100% track record since I've been in YouTube of predicting the budgets that are available, and I'm right within 1% standard deviation, 1% of every single time. And I've crunched the numbers. I haven't had a chance to look through the details today because I literally was out all day long. Came back, and then Johnny phoned me and said, "Numbers are out. Do you want to go live?" I said, "Bro, I haven't even seen them." So I haven't had a chance to look through the detail. But what I've seen, I will have to go through it tonight, and then tomorrow I'll do a stream where I will come up with my actual number. But in principle, even without European football, I believe, and this is why I said this week, I believe that you could potentially. And again, I got criticised on Twitter for some of the valuations of the players. If you don't mind, Savva, I think it'd be a really cool, just to calm things down between me and Lubo, I think it'd be really cool to actually have this conversation, a pivot, right? But I believe that Tottenham could have a net zero transfer window and still achieve what we want if you were to sell certain players for certain valuations and buy players for certain valuations. And I think that, and I've given myself an £80 million wiggle room there because I believe, and again, the numbers today I haven't had a chance to look through properly, so I might have to adjust, but I believe that there's an £80 million budget regardless of European qualification for the Champions League. If you make the Champions League, if you do go on and win the Europa League, then you're going to add an extra £25-30 million in prize money from this season, and then qualifying for next season, even if you don't make it through the league system with the prize money, the match day revenue, all that shit, then you could probably expect another like 70 million quid. So you said about 50 to 90, Savva, like it's probably about the right somewhere in there, right? But I believe that you could. Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, what's that?
I'll just say the way I was looking at it was this: I'm trying to tie it in with players that want to leave and players that we need to come in. So a lot of people have been having the conversation, haven't they, this week about Romero, all the links with Atletico Madrid. And I said this to both Barry and to Lubo, say this to you as well now. I think what will happen is Daniel Levy, if we don't get Champions League, I think what he will do is use the sale of Romero to offset the money that he wouldn't be getting from the Champions League. And I don't think he would buy a replacement. Now, I'm not necessarily having a go at Levy for that because I don't think he needs to buy a replacement. If we're only playing once a week and you've got Danso, Dragusin, Van der Ven, plus Phillips and Vuskovic coming in behind that, I don't think he needs to. But what it does make me question is, A, will we be able to attract better players that aren't just teenagers or up and coming if we're not in any form of Europe? And B, will there be a shift from what we saw last summer with the salary? We did see a massive decrease in the salary. Will we suddenly go, right, okay, we're going to do a 180 from last year and we're going to go, bang, we're going to start paying big salaries. That's what I'm trying to get at from everybody.
I've laid my cards out 3 months ago. I believe that Tottenham will sign a record transfer signing this summer and or a highest new club earner. If I'm wrong about both of those things, then the mud should flow my way. I'm sure it will in plenty directions, and I'll be buried in it. But that's fine, right? That's what you do. I don't know what I don't know. None of us know. As much as Lubo likes to pretend like he knows what happened between Harry Redknapp and Daniel Levy, he doesn't. And none of us do.
Start that again.
I'm not going to start that again.
Barry, let me ask you. Let me ask you, Barry. Then, Barry. Sean saying we could have a record transfer fee, which is going to be 60 million north, I believe, if we take away the add-ons. And we're talking about paying someone more than what Son is on, which is, I believe, 210. Somebody, I don't know, 200, 210. Do you see that happening? Do we see that happening, Barry?
Well, I guess never say never. But I don't. If both happen, then I know that Sean will be uncontrollable in his in his kind of replace.
But look, if they do happen, Barry, imagine if they do happen. Imagine what an absolute cunt I'm going to be to everyone.
Yeah. Well, again, Sean, you forgot the word again. Yeah, again. But no, look, we've seen the way that things have happened. We've seen the way that things have increased in terms of transfer fees and everything else. So is it out of the question? Is it out of the question that we go and get, I don't know, a Guehi from Palace and the English tax takes it close to what Sean was saying? Is that impossible? No. Is it, if we look at the wages in terms of what we're paying versus some of the ridiculous amounts that other players are playing, is it inconceivable again to say that might not happen? I mean, do I want it to happen for Sean? Kind of I do, because it would be quite funny, because then it would just be, again, short. But look, nothing surprises me anymore with this football club. And I think
Barry, let me interject. Let me interject. Using the player example you used, would Mark Guehi be attracted to Tottenham Hotspur with no Europe? Because he's going to have... I'm just using him as an example, right?
Yeah.
Surely any player that's worth 200k a week in salary is going to be courted by bigger clubs. That's my concern. That's why I wanted Ange gone by January, to try and save the league season. I know everyone is saying forget the league, but in January,
but then also it's also about other things, right? If you're you can do the go to City and go and maybe win things and then sit on the bench and do, you look at what happened with Jack Grealish, right? And now he's kind of not, he's not really flavour of the month. So
do you really think Jack Grealish is going to regret going to Man City?
No, I'm not saying he's going to regret it, but someone like Guehi, who is playing, with all due respects, for Crystal Palace, and he's going to be playing. What would he rather do? Would he go to a Man City and not play every week, or he wants to play every week? I don't know. Is he that type of guy that he wants to play every week?
Also, just quickly, it's not just Tottenham that qualify for Europe and then struggle in the league. Like, there's Lubo mentions the latest stick to bash Daniel Levy with, which is a Newcastle black and white coloured stick. Look at Newcastle United's last 3 seasons. Right? How do they get on in the league the year that they got into the Champions League? They got into the Champions League next year. How do they do in the league? Not so well.
7th.
Out of Europe, right? Year after that, they qualify in the Champions League. How they getting on? Not so well. But this year, doing really well again.
Well,
right? This is the tail. This is the tail. Right? The only team that you can look at that right now are upsetting the apple cart, apart from Tottenham in previous years, is Aston Villa, who are in the quarterfinals, and Nottingham Forest, who are in the semi-finals of one cup, domestic, obviously, and also doing really well in the league. But Newcastle United have got a good shout. Villa have got a good shout of being back in the Champions League by right anyway, and also doing really well in the Champions League. But for the most part, if you're a team that's in transition, and Tottenham certainly are, then a year out of the European football system will probably result in a better league performance, and a year in it probably means that you can't, you've only got so much mud to push around the plate, right? It is what it is. And so if Tottenham don't do the Champions League thing this year via the Europa League, which is in all likely probably true, then next year I think you should expect a better performance in the league. And if that doesn't happen, whether that's, I'd imagine that won't be Ange, but that will be a failure, right? But like the next guy that's going to come in, whether it's next summer or at some point in next season, that guy is going to inherit an incredibly more mature squad. He's going to inherit a team that, as much as it's chastised for some ridiculous reason, a club that is still a financial behemoth with or without European football. And if you happen to have European football on top of that and all the things that comes with it, then Mark Guehi or elsewhere or otherwise would look at that probably and say that Tottenham are still a step up. Same with the likes of Heungminson at Bournemouth, Semenyo, Mateus Cunha, the sorts of players that we'd all love to see at Tottenham are going to look at Tottenham as a big team, not necessarily the biggest, but a big team that are going to be back where they belong with the absence of European football. And if we happen to have European football, it's only going to be because we have the money to also compete. So if we do win the Europa League, and then you have that extra 100 million there, plus what you already have, plus maybe the departure of Romero, Bissouma, Bentancur, Richarlison, whatever else. If you can find those ways to exit those players, you could create an incredible budget. And then you don't have, or you do have, either way, European football to offer. But either way, money suddenly isn't a problem. And that's why I stand true to the idea that regardless of the scenario, Tottenham Hotspur will be able to be offering new highest club earners and also or not necessarily both, but I'd imagine both, transfer record spend. So on one player. So I'm going to continue this on this narrative, but this wasn't the point. The reason I came on the show was to discuss the financials, and Lubo's done what he does usually, which is to as soon as the facts don't agree with his opinion, he likes to take it down subjective paths, which is fine. Like I get it. Everyone thinks that Daniel Levy is a donut. That's fine. I just don't think he is, or not as bad as you do. I think he fails on many areas, but not as many as you do.
Sure, it's fantastic. He makes money, but I want to see it invested properly in the club. I want him to bring somebody in to run the football side and let that guy run the football team, not to let Levy make disastrous decision after disastrous decision. You've been in finance. Do you know any bank that go after better people and they're going to pay them less? You don't. You attract the top people with the top wages. That's how you bring people in. He is bringing the wage bill has come down. If we're talking facts, we're talking facts. He's been bringing the wage bill down every year for the last few years. Now, we all know.
Has he been bringing it down, or has it necessarily fallen as a consequence of Harry Kane leaving the club that's impossible to replace in the short term?
No, Sean, this is every year.
Ivan Perisic was earning nearly 200 grand a week. That was a short-term thing. Eric Dyer, a player that you, Savva, everyone else wanted to leave, and for what it's worth, is about to earn a new contract at Bayern Munich, right? Hugo Lloris, the club's longest-serving captain, who had the audacity to turn around and blame Daniel Levy for the unexpected and undesirably low despondency ratios of players when we didn't win the Champions League, because apparently there wasn't a winning mentality at the football club. This guy, who was the longest serving captain of our football club in my lifetime, and yet has the audacity to blame the guy that spends less time in our dressing room than he does by about 1,000 times over, has the audacity to push the fucking mud uphill. Sorry to swear, Savva. Like, all those players were moved on. And at the same time, we're also going through a transition of transfer strategy. It's likely and entirely understandable, if that is the factors, the variables that are in the environment, that you're going to have a shift in ratios of wage spend. Also, the thing that is entirely overlooked and deliberately forgotten by most is that Tanguy Ndombele's £10 million that he was earning per year, that was not a part of the dilution, even though it was used by people like you, Lubo, who know better, but yet because it serves your narrative, don't ever articulate it. And you're smiling, but you know better than this.
I have pointed this out on one or two podcasts recently.
And Ndombele's £10 million goes against the total transfer weight, the total wage spend, but we didn't just ship him on and not have to factor that in.
It was
paid off as an abnormal fee, right? So, and that's 25% of the wage ratio that came down is factored in by an abnormal expense, which is not articulated by people. People might not like me, but I'm not making this stuff up. And my opinion doesn't come into any of the things that I say. This is fact. It's objective, Lubo. You can twist the narrative and move it down a path of like, where's the transition as much as you want, but you move it into subjectivity. I keep it objective. People might not like the objective truth, but they are what they are. Tanguy Ndombele, his numbers, his salary, his wages, they were all accounted for in abnormal expense, which is on the list of things, but it won't come into the conversation because no one wants to talk
I have a question, though. I have a question with all of this, though, right? My issue is we lost Lloris, you lost Kane, you lost all of these big earners, these players. Why did Spurs then make the conscious decision to not replace those players with any form of experience, again, this could be Levy, this could be Lang, this could be Ange. I'm asking the question: why did we replace all of those players, other than Solanke, with kids, and all on very modest wages? That's my worry. That we knew Perisic was going, we knew Kane was going, we knew Lloris was going. But why did that mean we then had to drop the wage bill so significantly, which in reality does mean lesser quality of player?
I agree. Because ultimately, because the club pivoted towards a youth-centric approach at the same time. There's a lot of time. Half of life is timing, right? I said this before. Like, I've said this 1,000 times. The worst thing that could have happened to Tottenham Hotspur, especially when it comes to fans' expectations, was getting to the Champions League final and not winning it.
I do agree.
And not winning it. If you won it, different game. But you didn't. You know what happens there? You pivot back down to where you were. It's like buying a share price on the back of an abnormal event where a stock has some worldy minute where everyone's like, wow, their revenues are going to jump X, and everyone buys in at the top. You know what happens then? You demand that company continues their trajectory, even though the company has come out and said that was an abnormal event. And Daniel Levy has articulated that, not in the same words.
Okay, so let me follow on then. Let me follow on from that then. So surely, though, if we're going to go through this youth-centric approach, which I don't like, I'm all for buying a few youngsters, but I don't understand them buying a whole bloody squad of them. If we're going to go down that approach, isn't that a little bit of a kind of slap in the face for the fans that do pay the high ticket prices, that, you know, that went through the whole upheaval of moving stadium, you know, the comments that Levy and Enoch made about, well, we're actually moving grounds. We're doing this for you. We're doing this to compete. Doesn't it then, a few years after going into that stadium, to then go, hang on, it's a youth approach? Doesn't that kind of defeat the point of what we've done?
Yeah, okay. So I'm conscious of me talking too much, so I'll let the guys come in. But just to answer your question specifically, right? There's always other variables that are affecting the environment, right? And one of those things is massively inflated prices. £40 million 10 years ago would get you a top 10 player in the world in the position, give or take. Sure. These days, it gets you either an Archie Gray that hasn't got a minute of Premier League football, or it gets you a Brennan Johnson et al., right? Someone who's useless. I'm not sitting here advocating this. I'm not going to sit here and push this narrative that Daniel Levy and the people that he's employed have not made mistakes. They clearly have. People like Brennan Johnson, 100%, like absolute faux pas. Whatever value he has doesn't suit the system in which we're going into. So massive mistakes left, right, and centre. I share Lubo's frustration with all of those things. But again, that's not the conversation that we're having today. But in terms of, like, to answer your question around why is it that the club has to charge top money for access to the stadium, I'll maintain the argument that I always will, that you're not paying for the success. I had this debate with Ricky Sachs on Last Word on Spurs. He said, we were promised a game changer from the stadium. I said, and you got it. You got a game changer in terms of what Daniel Levy was actually inferring, which is the ability to compete in budgets. The 5 years from 2015 to 2020, including the year of the COVID year, the COVID year goes into the second half of the figures. The 5 years before we moved stadium, the average spend of our club was £12 million to £13 million a year net on transfers. The 5 years following, from 2019, 20, whatever, to 2024, was £120 million. So like a 500% multiplier on our transfer spend. That is the game changer that we are talking about. Now, when it comes to how do you spend that money, that is an argument that Lubo and I will agree all day long. There's been massive misspend. There's been an incredible intolerance in failure. There's been an incredible misstep here, there, and everywhere else. And Daniel Levy has also, for what it's worth, been moving towards the youth-centric approach because it's the area of revenue growth, whether you attribute that to his demand for profitability, profiteering, dividends, all those things that Lubo talks about, or whether it's just the natural thing that is the low-hanging fruit of our football club that we have failed at. But ultimately, when you look at the inflation in prices of players that are here now, ready now, Daniel Levy pivoted after Manchester City and after Chelsea, but before everybody else. And there's the football finance guys that go on to TalkSport every day, not the guy that's on the other channel that I was supposed to be apparently following, but the other ones whose name right now escapes me. My mind's a bit foggy. those guys are saying it's a new trend. It's a new trend that's emerged in the last 12 months, that no one wants to pay top money for 27-year-olds anymore because there's no resell on value, and the amortization processes are pivoting to a new dynamic. And so Daniel Levy might have been behind the Chelsea and behind Tobolli and behind Manchester City, but in terms of getting in front of everybody else, he was right to go in that path because he might have paid top money for people like Archie Gray. But if you look at the valuations of our players and you look at the fact that in the last, or if you want to look at the last 3 players that Tottenham paid a sum for, and then sold for a profit, you have to go all the way back to Gareth Bale to get the number 3 on that list. That's a massive, ridiculous gap in our history. And last thing I'll say is that now Tottenham could sell Archie Gray for a hell of a lot more than we bought him for. Tottenham could sell Lucas Bergvall for a hell of a lot more than we bought him for. Tottenham could probably sell Yang for more than we bought him for. Tottenham could certainly sell the likes of Jed Spence for more than we bought him for. And so all of those things might be uncomfortable that they haven't materialized in first team success yet, but those things are factored in by the external considerations around who you're competing with. Nation states. Newcastle United, right? Newcastle United are also backed by a nation state. I'm not attributing their nation state status as the reason why they have been successful in the last few months. They've been brilliant. They've just got a Nottingham Forest, by the way, have got an absolutely incredible track record in the last year and a half at being perfect with their transfer strategy. Tottenham have failed that regard. But I think that Daniel Levy's job is to protect our football club from sustainability risks. And I think it's also to provide resources. And on that basis, the stadium has done that.
So, okay, Lubo, let me ask you then, if that is the case, if we're going down this youth route, why is Ange Postecoglou not playing the youth players unless there's injuries? Because for me, what I can't work out, if we're going down this youth route, and listen, I've always maintained this. If the club came out and said, this is a youth project, like it or lump it, at least then I know. I can still moan and bitch about it every day on my YouTube channel, but at least I know, right? But for me, Lubo, it's been very half-hearted. You've got Mikey Moore, one of the most exciting talents to come out of the youth team. You've got Timo Werner's getting games in front of him off the bench, right? Yeah. Timo Werner's not a youth player. That's a player we've signed twice. He's 27. I don't know. I might be making that up. He's older, right? You've then bought Dominic Solanke. If it's a youth project, why are we buying Dominic Solanke at the age of 27? If it's a youth project, why is Archie Gray, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot his name. Why is Archie Gray playing one game in midfield in an entire season? If it's a youth project, I could go on and on and on and on. If it's a youth project, why was Ashley Phillips loaned out to Stoke when we only and Ben Davis is kept at the club? This is what I don't understand. On one hand, I hear it's a youth project, but we don't seem to be implementing that without injuries.
We have got a manager who is very good at a lower level, has jumped up several levels from Scotland to the Premier League. Put it all in one box. Japan, Australia, Scotland. Has jumped up from those countries to the Premier League, is completely intransigent, doesn't adapt, doesn't read the room, doesn't give kids a chance, didn't at Celtic by all accounts. So this isn't a new thing about not bringing kids in. Why is he there? Why is Ange there? Why have we got the most important decision in any football club is the choice of first team manager? Because at the end of the day, whatever the profits or not are in any club, the first team, the revenue from the first team drives the revenue for the club. You agree, Sean? If we were in the third division, if we were 2 divisions below, we wouldn't be getting anywhere near the money we've got coming in. You wouldn't have the sponsorship. You wouldn't have the ticket prices, etc., etc. It's all driven by the football club. Who picked Ange? Most important decision in any football club. Scott Munn. What top experience has Scott Munn got in any club in Europe? In football, specifically in football, Zero. He's very good. He's very good at arranging Olympic games in Australia. And if Daniel wants to have an Olympic
Also
game,
very good at the City Group in
Sorry?
Australia. He was also very, very successful with the City Football Group in football as well in Australia, for what it's worth.
in Australia, but not here. So not here. You know,
Listen, I don't disagree with you on Scott Munn's value. I haven't seen any of it, so I agree with you on that.
And who brought Munn in?
This is the point we go back and forth. So the buck stops at the top. The buck stops at the top for Daniel Levy. Okay, cool. And if that's the case, mate, then be logically consistent.
But Sean, ultimately, it's Levy's fault.
That's fine, as long as you apply the same logic.
And now Savva's asking the question.
As long as you apply the same logic, Lubo. But you don't. When I asked you who got us to 2, you said Tottenham have been on a decline since 2019. 100%. Of course we have. You know what happened in 2019? We punched well above our weight, and it reset the expectations of the fans to be able to compete at the top level to get to Champions League finals. And I think it's the worst thing that could have happened because it was an abnormal event. But even if that is the case, by your own logic, who is responsible for getting us to the Champions League final?
Were we not on the way down as a team?
Lubo, answer me the question. By your own logic.
I'm going to answer it to you. I'm going to answer. This is how I'm answering it, Sean. Would you agree that as a first team, in terms of performances, right? Full marks. There were some great performances, beating Dortmund that year, going to Barcelona in December, getting a good result there. We dug out a result. Was it Roma? End of November. I'm trying to think who it was. But by and large, the team was on the way down, and Poch, who was second choice to Van Gaal, came in. Levy got lucky. Fine, he picked him.
Got lucky, or the buck stops at the top.
He got lucky. Or the buck stops at the decision. Bringing in Poch and bringing in
lucky, or the buck stops at the top. Two things can't be true, mate.
Fine. He did well to get Poch and Paratici. They were his best 2 decisions in 24 years.
Good consistency.
Let's give him that. Nobody can be all bad, and Levy can't be all bad. So let's give him that.
Far from all bad, bro.
Let's give him that. let me put this to you. If he hadn't have stopped Poch from buying anybody, if they'd have actually put some extra money into the pot, granted that the ground there was a massive overspend, right? And there wasn't money initially. There wasn't money. He told Poch.
Good. Don't just acknowledge it, but bake it into your argument.
Right. But there was no money to strengthen the team when Poch wanted it strengthened. I think we all know that. I think that's fairly clear. Everybody knows that's facts. And what happened was that there was a general decline, a slow decline that started after we left the lane. We went to Wembley. The next year wasn't as good. I think what did we do? We went from second to third, then to fourth.
Did the same thing happen at Arsenal, Lubo?
I think
how long did it take Arsenal to win their first trophy after leaving Highbury? Just out of curiosity, how long did it take? They left in 2000. How many years did it take Arsenal to win their next trophy?
They didn't. No, hang on a second. They won the. You had the Invincibles in 2004.
Sorry.
Wenger had great success between 96 and 2004.
It took Arsenal, as far as I'm aware,
5 or 6 years, possibly
8 years.
8 years
to win their first trophy after leaving Highbury. But I'm pretty sure that's the accurate statement.
The difference is with Arsenal is that for several years after they left Highbury, they had David Dean there. And David Dean was running the football side. I think for the Hillwoods, he was the one that was fully involved on a day-to-day basis. And David Dean wanted the best for Arsenal Football Club and wanted success.
Now you're making subjective. This is just not your opinion, mate. You're saying Daniel Levy doesn't want the best for Tottenham Football Club. That's a subjective statement, and it's based on fuck all apart from your horrible opinion.
He is more interested in his pocket than the football side.
That's not an objective statement. Lubo, come on, mate. You're a smart guy.
No, I'm sorry.
Stop merging your opinion.
I look at facts.
It's not a fact that Daniel Levy doesn't care about.
It is a fact. Yes, it is a fact.
Come on.
It is a fact.
What are we doing here?
It is a fact.
It's not a fact.
Of course,
It's
it's a
your opinion.
fact. If you
The
can't,
same opinion that was wishing for Tottenham to get relegated, by the way.
only if they got rid of Levy.
Come off it.
You need owners. You need owners with a winning mentality and a winning culture that is going to go right the way through the club. We don't have that with Enoch. They're there. Listen, Sean, he wrote himself. Now you're going to tell me that was fiction? It was made up? That Levy came out and said that we are in this business to make a profit. He said that before they bought the club.
He said it when he was Rangers chairman. When he was Rangers chairman. Chairman.
He was honest about it, though. He was honest. That's what they do. They buy to make money.
Mate,
They
dude, Lubo, you're such a smart guy. I've spoken to you so many times, mate, offline. You're a very intelligent guy. You're a lovely fella. But if you're sitting here pretending like your opinion is fact, and you're just saying that David Dean cared about the club and Tottenham didn't, that's a fact. It's not a fact, mate. You're smarter than that. Don't be so ridiculous. Don't be so ridiculous.
Don't tell me it's ridiculous when I say that Levy's more interested in profit than footballing success.
I'm saying that it's not a fact that Daniel Levy does not care about the football club, mate. You are assessing the situation with your very, very specifically tinted goggles, mate.
Let me rephrase it.
Hold on. I've got to ask because I said I wasn't talking about Barry. Is there a difference between objectivity and subjectivity? Barry, please chime in and just correct the record that subjectivity, as in an opinion, and objectivity, as in the stats, the facts.
He will not take.
By the way, guys, we've got 2 minutes left, so whatever you want to get off your chest, it needs to be in 120 seconds.
So, let me sum up very quickly. He is only interested in the football side up to a point where it carries on making him profit. But to take the football side on that extra bit that includes a risk, he's not interested. Maybe that's made it clearer, Sean, and I'm sure
it's still an opinion. It's still a fucking opinion. Like I don't know what we're doing here.
He doesn't.
Jesus Christ.
He doesn't take it forward.
Please, Barry. Just like I feel like I'm losing my mind here.
No, you're ignoring facts. You're ignoring the fact. The facts are that
the fact is not that he doesn't care. That's your opinion, bro. Barry, smart. Correct the record. Correct the record, Baz. Come on, bro.
He won't push FFP to the limit like a lot of chairmen do. He will not do it.
Right. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Guys, I do need to end the show. I do have to leave to go somewhere. So what I will say is...
I feel like I'm an alien. I'm doing the ET thing right now because I feel like I'm an alien where I've walked into a planet where suddenly facts and fiction are just different things.
I need to go. If Lubo and Sean are happy, I'll get them together. We'll do another show another time. We've got more time. 2 sides of the same story. Guys, Sean, thank you very much for coming on. Nick, thank you very much for coming on. Luke,
I didn't really say much, but Sean, as much as I don't want to agree with him, he is correct, yes.
Anyway, just quickly, before we end, Anthony Clark, thank you very much for the super sticker. I really appreciate you, my friend. Super Spurs TV, Blaine, big up to you. What a legend. As said, hopefully this soothes some of the pain you suffer. Justice for Savva, big up, lads. Really appreciate that, Blaine. Thank you very much.
I like the way you didn't say that because
I need to go. Stop talking. I'm trying to end the show. I really need to go.
No, I'm kidding.
Right. And Seven, who's been a member for 19 months, the Sanctuary of Seven, has said, Levy out, Enoch out, Ange out, Sean out, smiley face. Listen, big up. Thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Take care, everyone.
I'm not leaving.
Goodbye, everyone.